Hi guys, we're back with another SCP Reacts. So we're here with part 2 of SCP 5000. I'm really excited for this one. It was so good. I want to watch it. I'm getting way too into this SCP stuff, like way too into this SCP stuff. It's still going to be long until I'm legitimately obsessed, okay? And it's all of you guys' fault. So I hope you're ready for more SCP stuff, because I want to see what happens to Pietro. So we're going to carry on now before I get too distracted, okay? Just make sure you like and subscribe and thumbs up all the people who made these amazing videos, like SCP Explained. He's fantastic. I'm using a lot of his stuff for the future, so just make sure you like and react to him. I'll probably post him in my description below, and yeah, just click the guy, or I'll find you. Now, let's go to the video.
Pietro Wilson tossed and turned as the nightmares from the previous day filled his dreams. In his restless sleep, he watched the slaughter of his colleagues at Site 22. The unknown men who entered the facility had gunned down everyone who worked there. Everyone, except Pietro. He remembered running deeper into the facility,
fisting his way through the dark.
In a windowless concrete room. There he had found SCP 5000. An exclusionary suit that allowed him to become
one of the best
undetectable to
SCPs in my
human
opinion.
senses. It was a step beyond invisibility. He successfully made it out of Site 22, but the eyes of the men he killed to get away haunted him. Pietro had never taken a wife before. The only solace was that it felt like the suit he was wearing had taken over, so his actions were not technically his own.
That's not hold-upable in court of law.
What would he have done without the suit? Would he still have killed another human to escape? After leaving the facility, Pietro had made his way to—
The thing is, in a lot of situations like this, it's difficult to know what you'll do in that circumstance. I would like to think that if I had the choice, I would kill someone to escape, you know, like self-preservation and all that. If it was like me or them, I would like to think I would pick them. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't, because I'm one of those people who's very— I don't know. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what you would or wouldn't do in that circumstance. Maybe Pietro would have killed the guy even without the suit. We don't know. I don't think he would either. Although, I'm not going to lie, Pietro, you've lucked out with this SCP. I don't think everyone got an amazing invisible cloaking killer device protection suit of armor that you don't even need to eat and drink in. That literally, I wouldn't mind one of those in a coming apocalypse where all the SCPs escaped. So, you know, might be all a little bit lucky.
To an SCP safe house. This was where he now lay. The slaughter of hundreds at Site 22 was bad, but what he found when he turned on the news at the safe house was worse. SCPs had been let loose around the world and were killing people by the millions. What was going on?
Delta let them out.
Pietro was startled awake from a nightmare. He was hyperventilating, but his body almost immediately recovered, and his breathing slowed. A heads-up display flashed on in front of his eyes. Pietro Wilson was still contained within SCP-5000. The suit would not let him go. He instinctively went to rub his eyes, but the metal hands of the suit just clanked against the helmet that covered his head.
Aww, he's never gonna see his flesh.
Pietro stood up and walked over to the television. He reached out to turn it on, but paused. He thought, do I really want to see how bad things have gotten since I fell asleep?
Yes.
But he had to know.
You would want to know.
As the TV came on and he saw the first images, the world looked as if it was ending, and it seemed like the SCP Foundation was responsible. How could this be? They were supposed to protect
Tell me!
Not destroy it.
There's so much
Pietro needed to
foreboding
uncover the truth behind what was
and
happening.
no explaining.
SCP-5000 had a log entry function that he could use to record everything he uncovered. Even if he didn't make it out of this alive, maybe one day someone would find the suit and be able to access what he had learned. The date of his first journal entry was February 1st, 2020. As Pietro watched the carnage unfold on TV, he began to put together the pieces of what he had witnessed.
I'm assuming
himself.
the guys that attacked Site 22 released all the
SCPs,
SCPs, right?
Everyone at Site 22 where he worked. He knew
Zeta.
that the SCPs had been let loose. He knew the world was ending.
The shy guy.
But why? As Pietro pondered this, a newscaster appeared. What you have just witnessed are reports from around the world of monsters ravaging cities and towns. This all started with a mysterious message from an organization that calls itself the SCP Foundation.
His hair looks like a pill. He's like this bit at the front. It looks like, you know, those little tablets that you can swallow, that easy to swallow pills. That's what his hair looks like. He's easy to swallow.
Their ruling body,
Oh,
named
wait.
the O5 Council, released the following statement.
Scratch what I just
For
said.
those who are not currently aware of our existence, we represent the organization known as the SCP Foundation. Our previous mission centered around the containment and study of anomalous objects, entities, and other assorted phenomena.
What is that?
This mission was the focus of our organization for more than 100 years. Due to circumstances outside of our control, this directive has now changed. Our new mission will be the extermination of the human race. There will be no further communication.
Wait, what?
He could.
What? No. That's not right. It's the Zeta Corp. It's the Zeta 19 soldiers have done this, haven't they? The SCP Foundation isn't going to just destroy humanity. No.
Couldn't
No?
believe what he was seeing. The SCP Foundation had declared war on the human race.
No.
How could this be? What had led to the O5 Council changing their entire mission from protecting
O5 Council's been
humanity to ending it?
assassinated, I'm calling
Could it
it
be
now.
possible that a powerful SCP had taken control or influenced the Council's decision? Pietro turned on the radio, flipped through TV channels, and scoured the internet for information on what had happened over the past 24 hours. The first image he saw was a human-like creature with arms and legs twice as long as they should have been.
The Shy Guy.
Deep black eyes and a mouth curled up into a silent screen, showing teeth as sharp as razor blades. From the files he could access, Pietro learned that this was SCP-096.
We've reacted to him.
A creature that was docile until someone saw its face, at which point the SCP would start to shriek and cry before hunting down whoever saw its face and slaughtering them. He quickly changed the
slow-mo
channel.
start nibbling
The
on
file
his
said that
face.
even if SCP-096 was seen on a screen, it would find the viewer and tear them limb from limb. Surely that couldn't be true. There were potentially millions of people who had just seen it on TV. What would happen?
He's gonna hunt
What
half
would
the
happen
world
to him?
down.
On the next channel was footage of a gigantic animal in the middle of the ocean. This was SCP-169, a leviathan from the Precambrian era. The creature was
think
around
I'ma react to
5,000
that one.
kilometers long and slowly swam just
Whoa. 5,000 kilometers long. That's pretty big.
below the surface of the ocean.
Bigger than some
The
countries,
feed
right?
suddenly changed to footage of devastating tsunamis and destruction caused by earthquakes. When SCP-169 had been awoken from its slumber by the Foundation, detonating nukes on its back, it began trying to escape the danger.
Oh,
The
that's
movement
so
of the massive
mean.
creature caused natural disasters, destroying coastal communities around the world. On another channel, Pietro was watching as the Chancellor of Germany gave a speech, announcing that the country was declaring war on the SCP Foundation.
Oh my god.
Off camera, the sound of a tinkling bell could be heard. A man dressed as a Victorian-era butler
it's the
entered and picked
butler!
up a
I
pen
know
from
this
the
guy.
Chancellor's desk.
Stabbed him in the
He
face.
approached the Chancellor and raised the pen in the air as the camera cut away. But the sound of gunshots and yelling could be heard before the feed went
The
dead.
butler can be
The
used
news
to
reported that
assassinate
similar
people.
events involving world leaders by the exact
so
same
good.
butler had been occurring since the SCP Foundation.
Wait. So the SCP Foundation is using this butler to assassinate world leaders. I mean, that's a pretty smart tactical maneuver, if you do ask me. I mean, if I was going to take over the world and eradicate humanity, I'd probably do the same thing as well. You know, like release the virus or whatever it is you're doing at the world leaders. You take down the world leaders. Everyone else is just going to crumble like pieces of Lego.
Changed its
Jenga.
mission. Pietro searched through the suit's files
I like
to try
that his
and figure
weapon's
out
a
what was
pen, though.
happening, and found that SCP-662 must have been connected. Next was a strange skin disease plaguing New York and Delhi designated SCP-610 that covered its hosts in rashes and boils before seeking to take over their bodies.
Oh, there is actually a
Finally,
virus.
some good news though, as the outbreak looked to be contained by the combined efforts of the Global Occult Coalition and the Church of the Broken God. And then some bad news, as
no.
SCP-682 had also been
Oh, this guy!
a
I love
massive
this guy.
crocodilian monster. Its sole mission was
He's
to
awesome.
destroy all life. It was fueled by hatred for living things, making it the perfect tool of the O5 Council's new stated mission. Pietro had heard rumors of SCPs that could instantly end the world, but clearly the Foundation hadn't gone down this route. Yet. Did they want to keep the rest of the planet intact? Or maybe there were holdouts in the SCP Foundation who were trying to stop the O5 Council.
Oh my god, is this why the Zeta 19 soldiers were trying to take out the Foundation members? Because they knew this was going to happen.
SCPs running around.
What a twist. Holy
Pietro
crap.
suddenly heard an explosion in the distance, far away, but still close enough to make him nervous. Maybe he was better off staying in the safe house and waiting out the apocalypse. The suit was keeping him healthy, nourished, and undetectable to foes. Any sane person would have remained there in seclusion and safety, but Pietro needed answers. He felt it was his responsibility
I don't know if I would,
to
that'd go
log and try to
insane.
make sense of everything the SCP Foundation was doing. He brought up a map of SCP sites in the area on his display. The closest was Site 19. It was time to venture out into the end of the world and find some answers.
I mean, I doubt he's going to get
But he was
killed though.
about to
His
be
suit's
faced with
ridiculously
even more
good.
questions.
On the way to Site 19, Pietro came across something strange. A squad of Foundation soldiers in a clearing. They were standing at attention as their commander paced back and forth, up and down the line. The
Why does
soldiers'
she have a
uniforms
knife?
had the insignia MTF Epsilon 6 embroidered on them. The commander stopped in front of the first soldier in the line, clapped her hands, and informed the soldier she would be beginning the check now. The commander pulled out a long knife and plunged it into the soldier's shoulder. Strangely, the soldier did not move, make a sound, or
What
react
is
in any
going
way.
on?
She moved on to the next soldier and repeated the process. This continued down the line until she reached the 8th soldier.
Is it
This
to check
time,
that they
when
react?
The commander stabbed the shoulder of the soldier. He noticeably winced and cried out in pain. The commander shouted, "Got a live one!" Pietro watched as the soldiers raised their guns and fired at the one who had cried out. He dropped to the ground. The commander moved on to the last soldier and put the knife in his shoulder. There was no reaction. "All right, we're clear," yelled the commander.
Wait.
"Let's move out." Pietro waited until the squad was out of sight and made his way to the corpse lying on the ground. He scavenged weapons and basic medical supplies. Then
So
he
the
buried
soldiers
body
are all
and
dead?
Reported what he had seen in SCP-5000's log. He had no idea why the soldier was killed, or why the others didn't feel pain.
So because
Maybe
he
they
was
weren't human at all.
alive, they...
Maybe it was a squad of SCPs that had a human infiltrate their ranks.
Yeah, I'm so
None of this makes
confused.
sense.
Yeah, I'm with Pietro.
Before
None
continuing on.
of this is making
Upon
sense.
reaching Site 19, Pietro found it in disarray, and worse, practically all of the SCPs that were held at the site had breached containment. He was able to walk into the compound unnoticed, and deep in the facility he found scientists and researchers going about their business as if they had no idea what was happening out in the world. They must have been following the orders of the O5 Council. Pietro listened in on conversations about how to create the maximum number of human casualties, and which SCP should be released next. He felt a deep hatred for the people in the facility.
Kill them all.
How could they be so casual about wiping out humanity?
Yeah, I mean, I
As
wonder
he
what...
observed more of
I
the
feel like
workers at
the
Site
organization's
19,
been
he
taken
noticed
over.
something strange.
Like, there's no way that the SCP Foundation's actually trying to wipe out humanity, right? Maybe they've been taken over by something? I don't... It's so strange. I have no idea what's going on. But I really want to know what happens. It's got me by the hook.
Range. Everyone's eyes were cold and dead, like there was no humanity left in them, as if something had got to these scientists and removed the very souls from their bodies. Pietro
Oh god, there's not an
stealthily
SCP
stole a
that can
senior
do
staff
that, is
member's
there?
credentials and found an empty office where he could access logs from the facility to try to get a better idea of the timeline of events that led to the SCP Foundation's war on humanity. He logged into the mainframe and brought up the entries from the end of the previous year. He found that late in 2019, a project called Numa
The end of 2019 is when it all went wrong. Does that sound familiar to you guys? I'm a little concerned now.
became of great interest to the O5 Council. From what Pietro could tell, the project had something to do with the collective human consciousness, also called the psychospace. Apparently,
Oh, like a
SCP
hive mind.
researchers had a breakthrough in mapping out the psychospace. Unfortunately, many of the files had been redacted, and there was no way for Pietro to access the unredacted version. After Numa had been
You
brought
need
to the
O5
attention
Council
of the O5
permission.
Council, a series of orders were sent out to all senior staff and site directors. But frustratingly, these orders had also been redacted. All he could see was that after the orders were sent out, a wave of resignations were submitted across the Foundation. Suspiciously, a wave of suicides had also occurred at roughly the same time.
I'm guessing
What
these
was
are the
in these
people that
orders?
didn't want to take over the
O5
world?
Council then sent out a number of files to all senior staff and site directors with instructions to disseminate the materials among those serving under them, after which both the resignations and deaths immediately ceased. Pietro searched everywhere for what was in those files, but like so much of the SCP
I'm
database,
so confused.
this information had been redacted as well.
Go find an
What
O5
was
member.
clear was that the SCP Foundation had begun gearing up for the extermination of humanity the following year. The entry log for February 1st, 2020 read, "Mobile task forces are dispatched to all exclusionary sites to execute all personnel. Immediately following the conclusion of these missions, the Foundation declares war on humanity."
Wait, so the
This was where
SC...
Pietro Wilson's journey...
Wait, so the SCP Foundation are the ones that actually arranged for the soldiers to go in and kill the people at the site, at the specific sites. It wasn't just some random band of Oh my god, so the SCP ordered the assassination of their own people? I'm so confused. This is so good.
had started. He slammed his hands down on the computer monitor in frustration.
I would
suit
do the same.
absorbed all of the impact and crushed the monitor in half. Pietro moved to a new non-smash computer.
Because he's like invisible at the moment, right? Can you imagine if someone's just walking past their desk and they just see a monitor just explode in half?
And logged in again. This time he brought up the most current entries to see what the O5 Council was up to recently, to see if there were some answers in the present. The SCP Foundation had been busy while he was making his way to Site-19. They had released SCP-1048 in Paris, which now led a horde of bears down the Champs-Élysées. In the distance,
I
Pietro
don't know
thought
what
he
that
could
is, but it
almost
looks
make
really
out
cute.
a massive red teddy bear walking between the buildings.
Oh, that's
The SCP
cute.
Foundation was also launching counterattacks on any organization that tried to oppose them. They used SCP-1290 to hurl projectiles at the Global Occult Coalition's base. They were also using SCP-1440 to brainwash people and convince them that they needed to riot. This caused widespread destruction as people panicked and were trampled to death.
The fact
Pietro
that they
thought it was
can just
sad that such a
utilize these
kind-looking old
SCPs
man
and just
could
bring an
cause
end
so
to the
much
world as we know it is
destruction.
actually a
He
quite
recorded
frightening
as much as he
prospect.
could before deciding that it was time to get out of Site-19.
So they literally just have been containing these super deadly to humanity SCPs for such a long time. They just went, fuck it, let's just kill everyone. And the fact is, they have everything they need. Oh my god, I'm so glad. Imagine if this was actually real. How do we know it's not real? Oh my god. My brain. Oh no, I can't handle it. Oh, this is so much of a mindfuck.
Although SCP-5000 still made him undetectable, he couldn't shake the feeling that the lifeless eyes of the staff were beginning to look his way more and more often.
Oh.
As Pietro exited Site-19,
Are they
the sky
detecting
glowed
him?
orange with the fires of countless burning buildings. He needed to find more answers. He needed to uncover the reason
world
the
is
SCP
literally
Foundation was
over.
trying to wipe out humanity. He had learned a lot from Site-19 and was sure that if he could just get to the next site, he would finally be able to figure out the Foundation's motive and maybe even how to stop them.
You need to
He took
find
a
the
step
O5
forward,
Council.
But his heads-up display suddenly went completely dark. The suit constricted tighter around his body, slowing the blood flow to his brain. He couldn't move as his vision got dimmer.
Wait,
and
is the
dimmer
suit actually killing
dimmer
him? No.
until he blacked out.
Oh, no way.
Pietro woke to find himself halfway across the country. It had been 3 months since he had been at Site-19, and he had no recollection of anything that had happened since. His body had taken a toll in these months. He had new scars, and a bandage wrapped around his head. But the SCP-5000 suit did not seem to have a scratch on it.
Wait,
Strangest of all,
did he get taken
was
out of the
briefcase
suit?
that Pietro had in his hand, and the uncontrollable need to deliver it to the mysterious SCP-579.
What? I'm so encapsulated in this story, but at the same time, I have no idea what's going on. So, hang on. Let me just get this straight. So, the SCP Foundation has organized the end of humanity as we know it. And to do so, they sent out soldiers to essentially wipe out all of the specific SCP sites, which then released the SCPs, and now they're killing everyone. Pietro, in trying to find exactly why this has occurred, blacked out. So the suit's definitely sentient then. Yeah, the suit's definitely sentient. So the suit is trying to do its own thing while also using Pietro as like a transportation system. But Pietro is also using... Ooh, it's like a weird symbiotic suity relationship. I can't... Oh, I need to watch the next one. We're going to have to watch the next SCP suit. I think it was... What was it called? The suitcase, right? Yeah, we're going to watch the suitcase next, so make sure you're looking out for that one. Do, as I said previously, make sure you like and subscribe and check out the channels that I'm actually using in this. It's SCP Explained Story and Animation. That's the channel I'm using. I'm going to link it below. And, you know, like my stuff too if you're enjoying it. So I know that you're enjoying it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next SCP one, guys. Make sure you don't have weird traumatic nightmares about this, because I'm kind of... My brain's just been completely scrambled. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!